Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a fantastic afternoon. In this episode, I'm going to be doing another installment of top 5 albums of Joni Mitchell. This one's part 2. So I'm going to be concentrating on the albums that she released in the 80s and 90s, basically. In the early 80s, she left Asylum Records after releasing Shadows and Light, the double live album. And she signed a 4-album deal with Geffen Records. And she moved away from her jazz influenced albums, most notably Mingus, which was her most jazz oriented album ever, her collaboration with Charles Mingus. And she moved towards more of a AOR pop style format. And but near the end of the 80s, she went back to her more acoustic guitar based, you know, style of music, intricate chord structures, etc., which for me is my personal favorite. But we'll get into that soon. This list for me was interesting to put together. I thought I knew what my number one was going to be, but I was wrong. I was really wrong on this one. So I'm going to start with number 5. Coming in at number 5 for me is from 1985, Dog Eat Dog. Now, this album for me is a little difficult to listen to. Number one, because it concentrates more on programmed drums, a lot of use of synthesizers and keyboards, a lot of overdubbing with keyboards. It was produced by Thomas Dolby and Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell, as I've said in the previous video, produced all of her albums. She was the main producer on every single project that she's ever worked on. And this album was no different. The lead-off single, I do remember, Good Friends. I remember it coming out in the 80s at the time, in 85, and it was played heavily on Much Music in Canada. As a teenager, I found her music a little confusing because, I mean, it wasn't done in a form of, A, B, C, D, E. It was sort of like A to Z to G to F, K, all over the alphabetical musical scale. And this album is no different. The only thing that's really a detriment to the album is the fact that it is heavily relying on drums, electronic drums, and programmed drums, and keyboards, and all that kind of stuff. Other songs of note on the album are Fiction, Empty, Try Another, which is like the shortest track on the album. It's like 1 minute and 47 seconds. It ends side 1. Small Toys was another single from the album, but Good Friends was the one track that I do remember, and it's the best song for me on the album. Joni Mitchell did note in interviews that Thomas Dolby, fantastic producer. Thomas Dolby, as you know, songs like Hyperactive, Blinding Me with Science, Submarines, also worked with Def Leppard on Power Mania, providing keyboard parts under a pseudonym. Joni Mitchell worked in the studio as in terms of very on the fly, like very sort of, she'd have an idea, she'd want to get it down on tape, and then you'd work out the rough idea, and then you would sort of hone in and fix it up and fine-tune it later. Thomas Dolby was guilty of, and being guilty, but he was guilty of working an idea to death and perfecting it to the point where the spontaneity just got sucked out of the room. And it was kind of detrimental to the project. He has gone on to say in interviews that he was basically a brat during those sessions. So for me, I've said before that the albums in the 80s suffered from a type of production, the 80s production, in that, the Linn drums were used, the drum machines were used ad nauseum, and the sound in terms of production from the 80s from these albums do suffer because of that. And this album is no different. So that's number 5. Coming in at number 4 is her first release for Geffen from 1982, and it's While Things Run Fast. This album, notably for using studio musicians, most notably Steve Lukather, appears on quite a few tracks. Steve Lukather, a fantastic guitar player from Toto, also worked with Michael Jackson, Barbra Streisand, among others. The list of artists that this guy has worked with is as long as, I don't know. I mean, it's incredibly vast, and but he was quite sought after in the 80s and still is to this day. So he contributed guitar work to this album. The album, While Things Run Fast, is more pop or oriented. You can tell there's a vast difference between this album and Mingus that was released in 79. Vast difference. And I think it was purposely done that way. I think she thought, a new decade, new sound, let's try something different. Tracks of note on the album are Chinese Cafe, leads off the album, which on the end of it, on the tail end of it, has an interpretation of Unchained Melody from the Righteous Brothers. Other tracks of note on the album are the title track. And again, all these tracks do have a sort of a pop-oriented type of melody or type of framework. Other songs of note are Man at the Window, which is more jazz-oriented, one of the more jazz-oriented tracks on the album. Solid Love, which ends off side 1, has a really good rhythm to it. Be Cool, which starts off side 2, more of a bebop jazz kind of a feel to it. Lionel Richie contributes co-lead vocals on the next track called You Dream Flat Tires. And this was Lionel Richie at the time when he had just released his debut solo album with songs like Truly and You Are. And a year before, he released Can't Slow Down with All Night Long and Running with the Night. Other songs of note on this album are Man to Man, Underneath the Streetlight, and Love, which ends the album. Again, it is a vast difference from Mingus. This is where she just took a left turn and went right into AOR pop. And it's a good album. It's a good album. It's definitely AOR friendly. So that's number 4. Coming in at number 3 for me, and I did another video on this album, and where I did an in the spotlight segment on this album. It is Chalk Mark in a Rainstorm. Released in 1988, a fantastic album. Lead-off single, My Secret Place, featuring co-lead vocals from Peter Gabriel. And the story behind this album was Joni Mitchell and Larry Klein were looking for studios to work in, and Peter Gabriel had just finished doing So with Danielle Lanois, and he offered them his studio, and she invited him to do some vocals on this track. A beautiful song, a very beautiful song, very emotive, very emotional. Peter Gabriel on background vocals, he does sort of like an ethereal approach to the vocals on the track. the it was the lead off single for music television at the time. Much Music in Canada played the shit out of this video, and the video was directed by Anton Corbijn. And if you looked at the video, it was done in a black and white, kind of like in a very grainy type of format, almost like a Super 8 kind of thing. And the song itself talks about the beginning of a relationship with someone, where love is brand new, everything is brand new. It's open to new possibilities, and you're sort of scared, but you're excited to let somebody in your life. Endless possibilities is what I call this track. And again, Peter Gabriel delivers a fantastic vocal delivery on this album, on the track, and so does Joni Mitchell. It's got to be said. Other tracks of note also on the album are Lakota, which is track 3, Number One, which is track 2. First of all, Lakota talks about the rights of the indigenous community and how the rights were taken away from them, and that basically today is in the news quite a bit in Canada due to the indigenous population being like in the 1950s and 60s being taken away from their kids, being taken away from their families by the Catholic Church and put in residential schools. There's been news stories about children that went missing that attended these residential schools, and how the Catholic Church covered it up and has just now apologized for what happened to these children who were never returned home to their families. And they basically went missing and nobody went looking for them. And mass graves are now being located in places like Saskatchewan and in BC and even here in Alberta. And it's unfortunate. So that song for me is fantastic. Other songs of note on this album are the Tea Leaf Prophecies, which talks about basically tackles the story of Joni Mitchell's parents and how they met during the Second World War, featuring background vocals from Lisa Coleman and Wendy Melvoin of The Revolution. Other songs of note are Dancing Clown, featuring Billy Idol, Steve Stevens, and Tom Petty. Great track. Wayne Shorter appears on this album on the last track, A Bird That Whistles. Does fantastic saxophone work on the album. It is a good album. It is, to me, it was almost like a return to form. This album got a lot of press and a lot of acclaim for the songs on the album. So that's number 3. Coming in at number 2 is Turbulent Indigo. Released in 94, her first release for Reprise for the 90s. She returned to Reprise after leaving Geffen in 1991. The album is a return to her more complex acoustic guitar work, complex chord structures and melodies that she does on acoustic guitar. For me, the acoustic guitar in this album, as well as her last album for Geffen, Night Ride Home, features quite prominently the acoustic guitar on these 2 albums, and they're all the better for it, I'm telling you. With Turbulent Indigo, as you saw from the artwork on the cover, it was inspired by Van Gogh. Very beautiful. artwork on the album cover. She did Joni Mitchell, sorry, did an interview for a music journalism show called The New Music, which aired in Canada and around the world. In 1994, for the release of this album, she did an interview with Kim Clark Champness at the Art Gallery of Ontario in Toronto, talking about this album and the frustration she felt about not being able to get her music across through the proper channels, through the usual channels that she used to, and how she felt very frustrated that her albums weren't being given a chance, that she felt that also she was pigeonholed into being presented as a female artist. She felt that she should have been presented along sides of Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen, but she felt that her music was better in terms of technical composition and musical structure. Songs of note on the album are Sunny Sunday, which starts off the album, Sex Kills, which I do believe was, I remember it being a single. I do remember that song being promoted quite a bit for the album. The track, How Do You Stop, which was a duet done as a duet. First of all, it was first done by James Brown, written by Charlie Midnight and Dan Hartman. Yes, that Dan Hartman, that I did a video on a couple of weeks back. And this arrangement or this version of How Do You Stop is a beautiful, beautiful sort of mid-tempo track done as a duet with Seal, who was on the rise at that point in terms of his music career. He had just released his second self-titled album. He's a major fan of Joni Mitchell, and he just adores her. And they did a video for the song How Do You Stop. It was featured quite prominently on Much Music in Canada, and you can tell in the video like he just idolizes her. And she also did co-lead vocals for a song on his second album called If I Could. So they had a mutual respect for one another. And this song is just a beautiful, beautiful melodic piece of work that you just sort of melt into the track when you listen to it. Her songs on all of her albums take you on a journey, or take me personally on a journey. You sit there, you have the stereo on, you don't even have to have a lot of lighting on, just minimal lighting, even just sit in the darkness and just listen to this album along with her other albums, and you're literally taken away on a journey sonically. You're just floating. You're like on air, and that's what her music does to me. And I'm quite sorry that I discovered her music pretty late in life. But I think also you're meant to discover music when you're meant to discover it. I mean, I don't think in my teens that I did appreciate. I didn't have the emotional maturity to appreciate Joni Mitchell's catalog at the time. And I think I would. I can say that I'm sorry that it took me so long to discover, but I also think on the flip side of that, I discovered her music at the right time in my life when I was supposed to. So other songs of note on this album, Tubular Indigo, are Borderline and Yvette in English, which is co-written by David Crosby. What I like about Joni Mitchell's songs, especially on this album, when she does her choruses, and when she does the background vocals, she it's almost like her vocals almost act as a counterpoint to the melody of what's going on at that point in time in the song. So you almost have a contrast, the point and counterpoint, the call and response. There's a lot of call and response going on in these tracks, which on this album, especially, which is beautiful. So that's number 2. Coming in at number 1 is Night Ride Home. Released in 1991, her last album for Geffen Records. This is where she, for me, really goes back to using the acoustic guitar as a main instrument, as a foundation for the songs and how they're constructed and recorded. It's a fantastic album. The album cover, if you know of it, as you just saw, is of a guy driving or someone driving home, and you see the mountains in the distance, and you see her face, her eyes, and just the bridge of her nose just peeking over the mountains, looking at you. And the lead-off track was inspired by a night ride home that she took when she was in Hawaii, when she was driving back to her condo, wherever she was staying. And it's beautiful. I mean, other songs of note for me are, Passion Play, which is the second track, Cherokee Louise, which is based on a friend of Joni Mitchell's that was abused, sexually abused by a family member. The Windfall, which is also based on an event that happened in Joni Mitchell's life where she was sued by one of her employees. And in the song, it's a scathing account of how this person is just looking to cash in on, the fact that Joni Mitchell has the money, and she just wants to get some money out of the deal. Other songs of note are Slouching Towards Bethlehem, which is based on a poem by W.B. Yeats. Or start again. W.B. Yeats. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Another lengthy, beautiful acoustic piece. Another track on the album, which I do remember as being a single, Coming In From the Cold. And it's got to be said, a majority of the tracks on the album are based on a person looking at their life from where they were and how far they've come, and looking back on their life at the point of middle age and seeing what they've accomplished, and looking forward and seeing what they have yet to accomplish and what they want to do with the remaining days of their life. It's just a fantastic piece of work on Coming In From the Cold, and it's clocks in at 7 minutes and 31 seconds. So I do remember this song being out in an edited form, because there was no way at the time that you would hear a 7 minute 31 second track on the radio, depending on the format. Other songs of note, the last song to mention on this album is Nothing Can Be Done, which again is another beautiful piece of work. All these songs on this album are just, they're snapshots, they're musical portraits for certain points in time in someone's life. And this is an amazing album to get. All these albums are available on Amazon, but again, depending on where you can find them, they can be, like, I know that Night Ride Home, if you're not careful, you can pay up to $60 for it. But if you can, they're available again on Amazon, on Discogs on eBay. If you can find them and you can get them, please get them. So that is my list from 5 to 1. I'll just recap the list quickly. Number 5, Dog Eat Dog from 85. Number 4, Wild Things Run Fast from 82. Number 3, Chuck Mark in a Rainstorm from 88. Number 2, Turbulent Indigo from 94. And my number 1 album from Joni Mitchell from this list, from this time frame, is 1991's Night Ride Home. So please, down below, down there, please tell me your favorite top 5 Joni Mitchell albums from any time period. You can even mash them up, mix them up from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, 2000s. There's no right or wrong answer here. Please let me know what your top 5 are. And click like and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. I've got some videos coming up. I just taped a video with Peter Kent from the Lizard King channel, and we're going to be doing, in that video we did a Led Zeppelin album ranking version 2.0. So that's going to be airing Tuesday. We're going to be doing another video taping on next week, Friday coming up. We're going to be analyzing and dissecting Pink Floyd's 1975 release, Wish You Were Here. Great album. And again, please let me know what your thoughts on this list. And click like and hit the notification bell and subscribe. And to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. So for right now, that's all I have for right now. So hopefully you guys are having a great day and you're looking after yourselves and one another. And I will see you soon with another video. Bye for now.